Greetings, leaders. Welcome to Leadership Is Podcast. I am your host, Jason Muhammad, founder of JM Leadership Development. I'm here to talk to you about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you on platforms like Spotify, Apple, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So listen, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. And always remember, leadership is influence and service.
Nobody can prevent you from choosing to be extraordinary. Even if you weren't encouraged or rewarded or even taught it growing up, ultimately we decide.
Greetings, leaders. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Leadership Is Podcast, episode 49, with our special guest, Mr. Mark Sanborn. Mark Sanborn is the president of Sanborn and Associates, an idea lab for leadership development. As a leadership strategist, he has authored 8 books, including the international bestsellers, The Fred Factor, and You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader. GlobalGurus.org ranks our speaker today as one of the top 5 leadership experts in the world. His ideas are taught by Crestcom International in 90 countries, and he is one of the youngest members ever inducted into the Speaker Hall of Fame. Mark is the leadership expert in residence at High Point University, the premier life skills university. His client list of 2,600 includes St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Whirlpool, American Express, Costco, and many more. Please welcome from Denver, Colorado, Mark Sanborn.
Well, thank you, Jason. Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're talking about today is how to create Encore leadership. Before we get into that, and besides the resume that I just read, here, your wonderful resume, who are you and what do you do?
I grew up on a farm in Northeast Ohio, got a degree in agricultural economics, and spent the first 6 years of my post-college as an account executive and a sales and marketing exec in the publishing business, specifically in the agricultural space. Shortly after that, I launched my own business as a full-time professional speaker and trainer. And today, some 33, 34 years later, I speak both digitally, primarily these days, which has, at least for the short term, replaced in-person appearances, although I still do a few of those when clients have started to come back and have meetings in real time and in real space. I also write books. I publish a lot in social media, share ideas, and I advise leaders at a high level on how to communicate more effectively, as well as how to turn ordinary into extraordinary. So today I'm a speaker and a writer and an advisor to leaders.
Very good. Yeah, I definitely have read, a couple of your books there. But I have a question, and every now and again I go kind of off script a little. How has this COVID, thing impacted your business?
Well, people still need good ideas as much as they ever did. It's just the way that we communicate them, at least, for this past year and a few months, haven't been typically in live audience settings, but digital presentations, or what we call virtual presentations. I co-founded a group called the Virtual Presentations Institute, which is vpi.institute. Instead of .com, it's vpi.institute. And we've developed training programs to help sales professionals, leaders, and speakers become more effective through the medium of the screen of their computer, using lighting and camera and their own studios, because that has, at least for the past little more than a year, been the primary way that people have asked us to deliver ideas. As I alluded to, I do have a presentation coming up next week, and I'm hoping that with the therapeutics on the horizon and the vaccine already here, that it'll just be a matter of time before people start having more in-person meetings. I don't know that the profession will return to pre-COVID levels or not. I'm not a futurist or even clairvoyant, but I do hope, and I know we will see more in-person meetings versus just virtual, although virtual meetings are here to stay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I did a interview with an educational consultant a few episodes back, and was talking about, in the educational field, how the Zoom platform though is should be looked at more as an extreme option rather than a replacement. But again, many people are looking forward to getting back to, being in person. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Mark. So now, you one of the books, and the book that I read was called The Encore Effect: How to Achieve Remarkable Performance in Anything that you do. And with this podcast being of leadership, what is the Encore Effect? What really is just the Encore Effect?
The encore effect, regardless of what you do, is being so good at what you do that people won't accept a substitute. They won't accept another sales professional. They won't accept another leader. They want that leader to be their leader. It's being in demand so that you are not interchangeable or replaceable. And that, of course, is hard work. And it's something that we should all aspire to. We don't always necessarily achieve it. But the idea is you want your customer, you want the people you lead to always want more of your skills and more of your leadership, more of your product, more of your service.
Yeah, wow. So then, okay, so looking at today's time and things that the world is faced with, is there such a thing as encore leadership? And if so, what is it? And how can leaders actually achieve it on all levels?
Well, maybe it would be easier to understand encore leadership if we looked at the inverse, and the inverse would be being a one-trick pony. And we see that a lot, especially in entrepreneurial efforts, right, where somebody's able to start and grow a company, and then they try another company and they aren't as successful. Leadership is a set of skills that can be learned and replicated. However, there are no guarantees. I've seen leaders that did a lot right and didn't succeed, and I've seen leaders that did a lot wrong and did succeed. So ultimately, it's about being current, being relevant, being agile, and trying new things so that we can replicate success for ourselves and our employees and our customers on a regular and ongoing basis.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to be, getting some more of your books. But if you can tell us something, about some of your books that you've written.
Well, the book that I'm probably best known for is called The Fred Factor, and the subtitle of that is How Passion in Your Work and Life Can Turn the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. I wrote that book back in 2004 about an incredible postal carrier. It's a true story. It's not a fable. And if anyone who's listening would like to read the chapter, The First Fred I Ever Met, it's the first chapter of the book, they'd like to read that for free, they can just go to fredfactor.com. Because not only do I offer that, but I also offer the book and online training and even an opportunity to be a licensed trainer for the Fred Factor. But really the big message of that book is nobody can prevent you from choosing to be extraordinary. Even if you weren't encouraged or rewarded or even taught it growing up, ultimately we decide, whether we're just going to sleepwalk through life and accept each moment as it comes, or look for any opportunity we can to build a better relationship with the people around us, to create more value, to make a bigger, bolder difference, and of course, to reinvent ourselves as we need to do so that we can stay motivated through the challenges that we face and not just run out of fuel as we age and as our careers go on.
Yes, sir. Now, there are two titles of books that you have that I am really intrigued on, in reading, and I'm about to purchase them. One is dealing with you don't need a title to be a leader. I may not be saying that title correctly, but the other one is.
That's correct. You don't need a title to be a leader.
Oh, okay. Very, very good. And the other one is the potential principle. Wow. Can you tell us, about those two books?
You bet. You don't need a title to be a leader is based on the premise that a title doesn't give you leadership power. It gives you power over people, perhaps in an organizational hierarchy. But if people only do what you want them to do because you can reward or punish them. That's compliance. Leaders, good leaders, always create commitment. And that's when people do what you want them to do because they want to do it. And that doesn't require a title. You know, we all know people who are untitled leaders. In the book, I call them little L leaders. And they've just developed the ability to get results with people, to get people to work together, to create focus and achieve great things, not because of the title, but often in spite of or despite a lack of a title. You know, there's nothing wrong with having a title. In a really logical organization, in a sane organization, a title should confirm leadership ability, but it can never bestow it. So in the book, I talk about the 6 things, and in my work, I've noticed that all successful leaders do. I'm much more interested in leadership behaviors than I am traits. Traits are, for the most part, inherited. And I have found that there's a bigger diversity in traits and a lesser diversity in what leaders do. You know, whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, whether you're creative or not, if you can learn the skills of leadership, then whether or not you have a title, you can influence others and lead. The potential principle is a system for continually improving, regardless of how good you've become. Most of my clients are very successful. And the reason for that, and this isn't bragging, it's true with any consultant or speaker, the people who most need to hear the sermon don't always go to church. And in the same vein, the people that could most benefit from an advisor or a consultant, a coach, either can afford one or won't afford one. So I mostly work with companies that have the means to keep getting better. And I realized my job wasn't to help them become successful. They already were. My job was to help them find a way to keep getting better regardless of how good they had become. And that's hard, you know, because we often plateau. We become just good enough and then we quit growing. And I often say, you know, the only thing that gets better with age accidentally is wine. You know, we as human beings have to be intentional. We have to choose to get better. And then what the book talks about is, how do you do that?
Very good. Very good. So in your field and in your work, you know, when you're dealing with, when you're talking about leadership behaviors and leadership traits, you know, for any leaders that are out there, you know, can you give us 3 leadership tips?
First of all, you've got to know what it is you're about. What is your main thing? What is the overriding arc of your business or your career, of your organization? Even though it's become a big cliche, there have been movies and book titles that have popularized this idea of, you know, the one thing or the main thing. I think all leaders are crystal clear on what they're about. They may change their approach, they may change their techniques and their processes, but they're crystal clear on what they're trying to achieve. Number 2, you've got to take consistent action every day to achieve it. There's only 2 reasons you fail: lack of clarity or lack of appropriate action. And intentional leaders are crystal clear on what they're trying to achieve, and they've identified for themselves and their teams, you know, what do we need to do today to do that? What's most important? They try to minimize the superfluous and focus on the important activities that will move them closer to that goal. The third tip I would suggest is that if you're a leader, whether you've just begun leading or you're near the end of your career, you should always ask yourself, you know, what do I want to be known for? What do I want my legacy to be? You don't build your legacy after you retire. You build your legacy during your work, have the most impact on people. Now, you may be able to extend your legacy. You may be able to continue your legacy after you retire, but you've got to be laying the groundwork now. And I think that means you're clear about, as a leader, what is it you want to be known and remembered for, because that becomes your legacy.
Hey, Mark, always a pleasure to listen and learn from you. As you know, give us these tips and this information coming from such a wealth of experience, you know, with all of the clients and the books that you've written. Do you have any closing comments and contact information, and how can people purchase your books?
Of course, if anyone's interested in following my work, the easiest way is to go to marksanborn.com, marksanborn.com. I have a video vault there with about 70 or 80 free videos. I blog every week. You can sign up to receive my blog, and we offer a lot of learning resources, whether or not you ever decide to purchase a book or engage me as a speaker or an advisor. I would say that if you want to really take a deep dive into leadership, to start with the book, You Don't Need a Title to Be a Leader. While it seems basic at some level, it's foundational. Radical means, basic. Radical is the root, right? And so radical leadership is always built on a strong foundation. The other book that I would recommend if people are interested in is the book that's really a lot of fun and continues to get great feedback, and that's The Fred Factor. And of the 8 books I wrote, I personally would love it if you read all of them, but those would be the 2 books to start with. And I do hope people will avail themselves of the resources that we make available at my website.
Absolutely. Hey, Mark, thank you so much. Mark Sanborn of The Fred Factor and The Potential Principle. And You Don't Need a title to be a leader, author here. And so listen, man, thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and your time and your talent.
Well, Jason, my pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
Are you promoting the right people into leadership positions? How do you know? How do you measure the outcomes, and are they the outcomes you're looking for? Please visit www.jmleadershipdevelopment.com. Again, www.jmleadershipdevelopment.com, and request a half-hour conversation to assess if we can address your leadership development needs. Oh, and by the way, always remember that leadership is influence and service.